You may meditate at a place in your house that is just quiet, but at some point, if meditation is going to be effective, if it's going to be something that has a value in your life as your life is lived, then the idea that the circumstances have to be right for you to meditate has to at some point be put aside. Because the purpose of learning to meditate is to wake up and be aware and awake in your life in such a way that you can experience the possibility of being grounded in awareness as you live. You're grounded in awareness. What's that mean? It means that if you're grounded in awareness, that your nature and the nature of awareness are the same nature. And the nature of awareness is worth studying, so you have some idea about yourself, because you are that. And if you study it, what you'll see, and if you look at it, what you'll see, is that the nature of awareness is that only thing that can be said about it is that it is. That's the only thing that can be said about it. That's why Mooji called it isness, right? It is. It's here. It's happening. It's aware. That's the only thing that can be said about it. It doesn't get involved. It doesn't get upset. It doesn't change. It's always the same awareness that's there. And it's inclusive, and that's the secret. Awareness is inclusive. It doesn't exclude anything. And so if you're going to be the way you are as awareness, and you're practicing meditation, and things in the environment, see, in the beginning, when you're just settling with getting used to the idea of meditating and sitting still and not moving and, all those things, it's helpful to not deal with anything that may be going on in the environment. But eventually, it's important to experience being in a normal environment, a regular environment, because then you can practice what meditation is all about, in the sense that meditation is inclusive. So if you're practicing meditation and something happens unexpected, a noise, a phone rings, or in my case, the dog comes and jumps up on my lap, or the cats, right? It goes back to what I said earlier today before we started the practice, right? If your attitude is playful, then it ain't no big deal. What happens is no big deal, because you're playing with it. You're saying, how does this work, type of thing. And if that's the case, and there is something that happens in the environment, and it occurs to you to be a distraction, what you want to do is examine whether or not it is actually a distraction, or whether that's the way your mind labeled it. That's what your mind called it, a distraction. And if it's a distraction, part of the idea of it being a distraction is it shouldn't be there, right? Or this should be different, or I need it to be different, or I want it to be different. And the practice of meditation is the practice of, as we were talking about earlier, is the practice of allowing everything to be the way it is, including you, including the environment, including the dog, including the noise, and so forth. So in actuality, if you're practicing the meditation that I'm teaching, in actuality, if there is something that happens, it's an opportunity for you to practice being yourself, and the way you do that is to include it. You just include it. When I was first, I used to sit in my family room and meditate, and my bulldog used to come up and push his nose against my knees. He wanted me to pet him, and I didn't move because I'm practicing meditation. Part of the practice is not to move, right? So then he didn't accept that because he doesn't understand meditation, right? All he understands is, you're there, I'm here, pet me, right? So he started jumping up on me, right? So when I looked at this, and I looked at it from awareness, what naturally occurred, and it wasn't something I thought of, but when I looked at it from awareness, what naturally occurred is I leaned over and I picked him up and brought him up on my lap and let him sit on my lap while I meditated, right? And he was perfectly happy with that. In fact, he fell asleep, okay? So that's the way you deal with it. You see, the thing is, if you understand what you're doing when you practice meditation, you understand that it's the practice of inclusion. It's the practice of acceptance. It's the practice of noticing whenever something's happening that shouldn't be happening. Yeah, because if something's happened, if something's already happened that shouldn't have happened, right, you're going to suffer, okay? No matter what it is, no matter what it is. And the reason that's the case is because you can't unhappen it. You can't unhappen what's happened. It's already happened, right? Only thing left is how you're going to relate to it. You're going to relate to it like you're okay about it, or you're going to relate to it like, I don't like it. I don't want it. And you see, here's the thing. You know, recently I'm always looking at, where I'm seeing people at and trying to understand what might be a way to talk to where they're at that could be useful. And one way that occurred to me recently to talk to people who are doing this practice is to say to them, look, you're under a spell. You're under a spell called being a person, right? Your brain has been put under a spell called being a person, right? And so and you've practiced that for years, right? You've practiced it for years. And you learned from the people that taught you how to be a person, how to do that. And one of the ways you've learned from other people is to reject reality. That's what a person does, right? A person is a rugged individual. A person is somebody who is unique, right? And separate from everybody else, and wants that to be the experience of being a person, to be a strong person, a smart person, a good person, right? And to show up for meditation class in person, right? Please don't be here in person. That makes my work hard if you're here in person, right? But isn't it interesting? That's the way we talk about presence. The way a personality talks about presence is they call it being in person. That's presence, right? But the way the wisdom teachings talk about presence is it's to be the awareness, not the person. The awareness is the presence. The person is the spell you've been put under. And the way you can begin to see the spell so that you can stop living in it, living as it, right, is to pay attention, but not just pay attention, but notice when you're being a person. And the way you can notice that is two ways, right? One way, if you're not in a situation where other people are there, you can pay attention to the thinking activity, because the thinking activity is where the person gets generated, right? So if you watch the thinking activity will be the voice in your head identifying itself as you as a person, talking all the time, right? It's a narration of everything, right? I like this, I don't like that, oh my God, this is going to happen, why did that happen? Living with an annoying roommate that never shuts up. That's a good definition, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah. So you see, you have to train yourself to be related to the voice in your head as if it's not you. So you can start to recognize what it's doing. If you consider it to be you, you won't see that. If you consider it to be you, you won't see that, because you'll be it speaking as it about everything. So you won't really be able to see it, right? Because you're being it, right? But if you train yourself to listen to the voice in your head and hear it the way it actually is, which is not you, it's the mind, right? It's the database, it's the brain, right? It's the machine with a voice, is what it is. And it's insidious because there's a lot of times when it's not a problem, when the voice is having a good time, it's not a problem, right? But that's not the case most of the time. Most of the time, the voice is judging and evaluating, right? Rejecting reality, talking about what should be instead of what is. Why is this? Taking sides, having a position, that's all the business of the personality as it manifests itself in thinking. So if you start to pay attention to that like it's not me, you'll start to catch it. You'll start to see the spell, right? You'll start to see the spell. You'll start to see that if you listen to the thinking and if you listen to the thinking and consider it to be you and let it use your mouth and let it use your body, there's going to be a lot of suffering going on around here. You see what I'm saying? Because it's not interested in your well-being. It's not interested in happiness. It's not interested in the truth, right? All it's interested in is the person realizing what's possible for a person, which is to be in control, make money, get a good job, have a relationship that works, have some hot sex. This is the life of the person, right? And everybody's trying to live that life as best they can, make as much money, have good sex, right? Not be in control, not lose anything, be physically healthy, and mentally healthy, although in both cases people, one of the first things the person or the personality ignores is the body, and more than that, the mind, right? So, and the reason for that is because the person considers itself to be real, and the person considers the mind to be the mind of the person. The person considers the thinking to be the thinking of the person, right? When in reality, if you start to wake up and you start to see it clearly, you start to not stop identifying yourself as that, right? But pay attention and notice what's happening, right? This is when it starts to become uncomfortable for a lot of people because they notice they're crazy. A lot of people don't like to practice meditation because I don't want to be with me. I spend most of my life avoiding this. I spend most of my life avoiding me. I don't want to be with me. I don't want to sit quiet and watch this mess in my head. I don't want that. And so people avoid it, right? Because one of the ways the personality deals with reality, right, is to avoid it. To avoid it. Or chase it, if it's what you want, you chase it. If it's not what you want, you avoid it. It's like that. That's the game that's getting played. That's the way your brain is operating and so forth. But what we're doing here is we're slowing down and we're being silent and we're being still so we can look and so we can see with what's real, the awareness, and look at the thought process, look at the thinking activity, and notice the content of it, especially when you're in the mind-wandering mode. The content of it, right? The content's always about what I want, what I don't want, what I like, what I don't like, how it should be, what should change, on and on and on. So if you talk to somebody who is inexperienced with meditation, or you talk to somebody who is not yet far enough along the path to be free from identifying with this voice and thinking they're a person, right? All you will hear if you talk to a person who's new at meditation or a person who is not yet far enough along to recognize the truth of who they are is complaints. You watch. You talk to somebody who's a neophyte in meditation. Oh, well, how's it going? Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Can't do this. I just keep falling back into the mess, and I don't know. It's just too much distractions, too much noise. Maybe I don't understand this. Maybe I don't have the right teacher. Maybe I need to read more books. Maybe I need to go to a retreat. Or maybe I need to just stop this whole thing and get drunk. So this is the process that people go through when they're dealing with life and they're dealing with the practice of meditation. And that's why I say it's very important to have a guide or a coach, somebody that can inspire you, somebody that can tell you, don't worry about it. Don't worry about all these things that happen when you're practicing meditation. It's part of the process. It's just part of the process. Confusion will occur, right? There will be breakdowns. There will be times when you find yourself in situations and you're saying, oh my God, and you're freaking out, right? Because something's happening, right? It was unexpected. You thought this would be easy or different, but it's not, right? And when things like that happen, the personality is like a magnet. It sucks you in, right? It sucks you in, right? And then once you identify with the voice in your head and you identify with the stimulation in your body and you identify with your interpretation of the situation, right? Then there's nothing to do but freak out or run, right? Or complain, That's the way the personality lives life, right? Because you see, it's all hooked up together, right? The voice in your head, how you feel, and the sensations in your body, right? That's all connected, right? And that's why you got to find a way to get into that system, right? And the way you get into that system is to pay attention to the voice in your head and the feelings in your body and the emotions. But the voice in your head is a good entry point, right? Because what you feel is usually a function of how you think and how you're perceiving things, right? What your interpretation of the situation is, right? That usually results in the bottom line. one of the elementary understandings in this practice and these teachings is they ain't your thoughts. Once you, and if you cross that bridge and you don't know you did, you're in the land of it's your thoughts. And then everything falls out of that. But if it's not your thoughts, that's what I was saying earlier. If you get a divorce from that reality and you recognize that voice in my head is not me and they are not my thoughts, right? I call them my thoughts, people call them their thoughts, but that's part of what we call ignorance, because ignorance means that you're ignoring reality. If you paid close attention, you would come to it yourself that you're not your thoughts. It's a very easy thing to see for yourself. All you have to do is look and notice. You know, I was listening to a guy talk last night, and I've never seen it as dramatic. And this guy was a scholar and a teacher and all this stuff. It was an excellent, I'll probably send a link to you guys to see this guy talk. It was just amazing, some of the things he was saying. But when I was watching him, you could see his eyes. And when he was getting ready to speak a thought, his eyes would go up here and he would look up and see it and then come back and speak it, right? So he would have to look and see it because the voice in his head was saying it, then he would hear what the voice said, and then he would repeat that and call it what I'm saying. You see what I'm saying? But you could see it. You could see him look and see. And you can see that with people if you're talking to people and it's a conversation that requires some thought, right? It's not just, stuff that you could say, automatically, but you have to think about what you're going to say. Watch their eyes. Their eyes will go up and look to see what the voice is saying and then tell you. So it can't be you because you wouldn't need that. You wouldn't need that looking to see what it says. You would just be able to directly speak it if it was you. And there's a lot of other ways that you can look at it to see, like you can't stop thinking at will, can you? No. If you're the thinker, stop. If you can't stop, how can you be the thinker? So the evidence is very clear. It speaks very clear and very loud for the truth. But who's paying attention to that? You see? Everybody's in the spell. Once you're in the spell, it's just like I say often here. The question about who you are, who am I, right? Maybe the most important question a human being can have, right? If you really look and understand what's going on here, isn't a question for almost anybody. And the reason it's not a question is because a question can't be a question that already has an answer, right? It's not a question. It already has an answer. So nobody's asking, who am I, right? No. They're asking, how do I make more money? They're asking, how do I look good? They're asking, where do I get Botox? How do I invest in my future so when I retire I can really have a lot of fun? That's all the stuff, the mishigas, that people are living their life in, right? And the quality of their life is not very good, right? Because you're working 24/7. You're working 24/7. And you know what your job is? You think your job is the work your career or what you do to make money? No, your job is being a person. That's job one, right? Being a person. And that's a 24-hour job. You even have to work when you're sleeping, you have to work being a person in your dreams. So you're on the job 24/7. And one of the things that this is about for you to find out through the practice and the teaching is you can stop thinking you have to do that job. You can stop thinking you have to do that job. You can just be who you really are as the awareness. The job will get done anyway. It never required you in the first place. You just thought it did. Your brain's driving your car, not you. Do you understand? Your brain's driving your car. Your brain's doing your taxes, not you, right? You could be there, and I found this out recently because dealing with computers and doing taxes are one of the few things that's left that makes me crazy. I'm happy to report this is one of the few things but still, today I had a really good day because I was working on my taxes and I was able to feel relaxed and happy. And, that's not how it started. I started working on my taxes the other day, right? And just like everything else, everything is a lot worse. The fear of it is a lot worse than the actual reality of it. They always say the fear of death is worse than death, right? The fear of public speaking is much worse than public speaking, but most people never find out because they're afraid to try it, right? But the thing with the taxes is that, I knew this was a reactive thing for me, right? And so when I went into it in a meditative way, to pay attention. But even though I was paying attention, right, the craziness still came, right? But I continued to watch it and continued to just apply myself to what needed to get done, right? And and this is important for you to understand, because of the time, the years that I spent doing this practice, and because of my understanding, I could stay present to it. I could stay there with my mind, okay? And not identify with my mind. My mind wanted me to be it. My mind wanted to be crazy and upset about taxes, right? So I was present to that, and it was really using everything it knew, right, to have me be crazy. Oh my God, what's going to happen if I didn't pay enough estimated tax? What if I make a mistake? What if I get audited, right? It was selling me all the stuff that it would need to sell me to get me upset, right? And I'm watching it, and I'm breathing, and I'm stopping for a minute and just going into a meditative state and just watching, But eventually, because of my practice and my understanding, eventually that bubble just popped. Eventually that bubble just popped. And what was left was what I needed to do, right? And my experience of doing that, and my well-being and the quality of my life was there. I wasn't upset and I wasn't crazy. Right? This is the possibility, but it's not going to happen by itself. And you have to be patient, and you have to accept the fact that you're under a spell, and you're going to keep talking like a person, right? But if you pay attention, you can start to catch it. You can start to catch it here instead of here. You can start to catch the thinking as a person instead of the speaking as a person. And one of the things that I say here, and I've said it to most of you who have asked questions, right? Many times I'll stop you and turn it around and say, listen to what you just said. Listen to what you just said. You're being a person speaking from the point of view as a person. That's the most important thing to see, right? Of course, the person's going to have endless questions, right? Because that keeps the process going. Because if I have a question as a person, it validates that I'm a person. It's craziness. It's crazy, right? So it's a spell, and you have to be patient, and you have to understand that you have to get to a place where you stop letting your thinking think you. You start letting your feelings feel you, right? Because that's more the way it is than the other way. Thinking is thinking you, right? And you don't know it. You don't know it. You're the slave of the voice in your head. You're the slave of your mind. What it tells you, you follow. What it says to do, you do. Because you think you're that, and you don't question yourself, right? You think you're the voice in your head, so you're not going to question what you think to do. You just don't do that. You don't question what you think to do. It doesn't make sense. Why would I do that? Why would I question myself? I don't know. I mean, See, I don't know whether that changes. I don't know whether after you wake up and you see things as they are, that falling in love can't happen anymore. I'm an old man, so I can't use me as an example. I don't fall in love because I don't have the energy for it. But for most people, right? For most people, falling in love is about procreation. You don't have any choice about it, right? It happens. It happens, right? And usually it starts with a visual attraction, right? And there's a whole psychology about how visual attraction works. You can look into it if you want, right? But it's all automatic stuff, right? Your brain and their brain connect, right? And there's a whole psychology about how that works and so forth and so on, right? But that's not love. That's not real love, right? That's the love that just happens, that you fall into, right? And it's all part of an automatic mechanical process to get you to have sex so that the human, kind can continue, right? And so it can't depend on you. Otherwise we wouldn't be sitting here. So it's got to be an automatic thing that you can't help doing, right? Your sexuality, your sexual impulses, your attraction to have sex. And then along with that is this romantic love, that you fall into, What's that?
Chemistry.
Yeah, it's chemistry. In a sense, you fall into it, and everybody has that happen in their life, And when you're in that state, you're stupid. All you see in the other person is wonderful stuff, right? And then when that comes down, you say, oh shit, I thought it was all wonderful, right? That's when that's when that starts to recede and you get back into your ordinary state of mind, right? And it's only then, if we're talking about relationship, it's only then that the possibility of love exists, right? Because at that point, you're getting on each other's nerves, right? So at that point, you're not going to fall in love. You got to cause it. You've got to create it, right? You have to intentionally, consciously create love. And what is that? Well, one way to find out what it is to pay attention to your natural state. Pay attention to your true nature, because your true nature is love, right? So let it teach you how to love. How does it love? It loves unconditionally. What does that mean? It means everything that comes into its view, right, is embraced, is loved, is accepted, is appreciated, is valued, right? Naturally, that's the case, right? Now, if that's the case, and you go to apply that to your partner or your wife, right, there's going to be a difference, right? That's not the way they're going to show up for you, okay? So what you have to do is you have to learn to see them as who they are instead of learn to see them as a person or a personality. Learn to see them as who they are, and then when they interact with you as a personality, that's how they ended up. That's not who they are. Just like how you ended up, right? Your conditioned version, right, of you, right? That's how you ended up. But behind that for all of us is the same exact consciousness, the same exact awareness, right? And when you connect with that with another person, that's real love. That's real love. And then you're able to be with their personality, right? And you're able to be with the personality because you're being with them not as your personality. You're being with them as who you really are, right? And then it gets interesting because the personalities will try and get involved and have fights and argue and, do all the stuff that personalities do, because personalities thrive on avoiding being dominated, don't they? Personalities thrive on dominating and avoiding being dominated, being right and not being wrong, looking good and not looking bad, right? So that's the dynamic that's going to go on between you and the person that you say you love, right? But if you say you love them, and if the way you're relating to them, especially in challenging times, right, is that you reject them just like you reject everything else you don't like or you don't feel good about, you might as well start looking in the phone book for a lawyer, because that's the way it's going to end up. It has to go that way. It has to go that way. This is the way most relationships go. The way most relationships go is people fall in love, it's hot, they love each other, it's wonderful, we're going to be happy the rest of our life, we're living in a fantasy, but it's Disney, right? And then it all calms down and you start to be in the world of real reality, right? And then because people really don't understand love and they're not being who they really are, they don't have any option, right? So they start tolerating, right? And the rest of the relationship is tolerating, putting up with, coping, right? Look, you go and do what you want to do. I'm going to go bowl and then watch TV and drink some beer, And I know those are stereotypes, right? But that's the way it goes in relationship. People end up putting up with each other, that I don't tell you how angry I am with you because I'm tired of fighting. So I'll just resent you quietly. But the opportunity remains, even for people who fall in love and then get into this crazy way of being related that doesn't work. If you study meditation and if you learn about the wisdom teachings, you can find a way to actually experience real unconditional love with your partner. And it's a practice, just like meditation. It's a practice. You'll be challenged. You'll be challenged because they'll say things that will instigate a reaction from you as a personality. But if you're paying attention and you see it, you don't identify with it. You keep being who you really are. You keep allowing your mouth to be what you're in charge of instead of what the mind is using, right? You keep using your body as what you're in charge of, what it does, instead of let the mind use it to do what it wants it to do. The examples of this are all over the place. I mean, 1 week ago, somebody smacked somebody on international television, right? Here we are 7 days away from it, and it's still in the major news. Still in the major news. Because why? Because all the personalities all over the planet have a position now. He should have done it. He shouldn't have done it. Why did he do it? You know, on and on and on. You can go on the YouTube now, and there are psychologists that are commenting on it. Not just commenting on that, but commenting on their relationship going back years to talk about how this evolved and what happens when things like this happen. It just turns into total madness. Total madness. Can you see how meditation is not just meditation? Meditation is not just about spirituality. It's not just about religion. It's not just about all the woo-woo stuff that people seem to relate to it. No, it's a very practical thing. It has to do with your being happy. It has to do with your being real and authentic. It has to do with your being able to operate in the world effectively and cause things to happen that you want to happen instead of continually finding yourself in trouble. That's the depth of meditation. The surface of it is stress reduction. But when you get to the deeper and deeper aspects of it, it can get deep enough to offer you life everlasting, as Jesus Christ said. It can get deep enough to offer you life everlasting. The obviousness of that promise is pretty easy to see. If you are a spiritual entity, by definition, you are not physical. Yes? Right. If you are a spiritual entity, if that's true, by definition, you are not physical. And if you are not physical, then do the laws that affect the physical world affect you? No. Do the laws that determine that your body is going to get old, sick, and die affect you? So it's not hard to see that intellectually, right? It's not hard to get the concept, right? But the concept doesn't change the fact that the brain is still operating, right, with you being a physical body and with you being a personality, and you're heading towards death. Even if you see the truth, the brain will still be operating that way. Check it out, you'll see. If you understand that if you're not physical, then it must be true that what you are doesn't die, right? That concept is pretty solid, not hard to get, right? But does that change your fear of death? Nope. Does that change your fear of death? No, because that doesn't change the fact that the brain has been conditioned that you are a physical body and you are a personality, right? And its conditioning has it react to any threats to the physical body or the personality. Even though that's not real, even though that's not true. But the agreement that it is, right, all over the place, isn't it? See, what I'm saying here is not what the common agreement is. It's not what the agreed reality is. The agreed reality is you are a physical body and you're going to die. So that there's nobody, you know. But these teachings tell us otherwise. And even though they tell us otherwise, that's not going to free you from carrying the weight of your mortality. Just the understanding of the concept is not going to free you from carrying the weight of your mortality. You're going to have to practice and actually practice consistently enough to bring about the transition so that you're grounded in the truth of yourself, that you're experiencing yourself as that awareness. And when that happens, the fear of death goes way down. It's not going to disappear, right? Because if it disappeared, you probably won't live long. The brain has to be protecting the body by looking out for threats to it. So there'll still be fear of the body's death, right? But that's nothing compared to fear of your death. Didn't you say that we should accept things? No. I said that who you really are, right, doesn't reject anything. That's different from saying you should accept things. See, if I'm saying you should accept things, that means you as a person should accept things. If you could accept things as they are, you'll be fine. You won't suffer, right? But this isn't about being a better person. This is not a self-improvement project. This is not about being a person who accepts everything. No, this is about being yourself. And what you really are, authentically, what you really are as awareness itself, doesn't reject anything. It doesn't reject or accept, actually. I mean, we're using those words because we have common understanding about those words. But the way the awareness is it just is. Remember I said that? It just is, which means it's not rejecting, it's not accepting. It's just there. It's just there. It's witnessing. And it's always there, and it's always been there in your life and my life. It's always been there. The question is, when are you going to start giving it consistent attention so you can recognize it's you? That's what Nisargadatta said, right? His guru told him before, he had a guru, and the guru died right after he gave him one instruction. And the instruction he gave him is, just keep paying attention to the I am. The I am is a way of saying the awareness. Keep paying attention to the real you. Keep paying attention to the reality of what you are. That's your practice. And Nisargadatta said it took him about 2 years, and he was that from that point on. But how many of us pay that kind of attention that consistently the way he did, right? He took that to heart. He trusted his guru, and he knew that if he practiced that it would lead to liberation, and it did. And so it's the same thing here, Keep paying attention to that which you've been ignoring, which is you, the awareness itself. It's there at all times, watching you as a person suffer unnecessarily. It's there at all times, watching you as a person suffer unnecessarily. And that's why when you're aware of yourself as that, and you see other people suffering, you experience compassion. Because you as awareness sees them as awareness suffering unnecessarily. And so you have compassion for that. You don't want them to suffer needlessly. And that's why bodhisattvas is a word in Buddhism. And what it means is that there is no liberation for you unless your liberation and the liberation for all of humanity are the same thing. That's what a bodhisattva is. It means that there is no individual liberation. If you experience liberation, then your life is about sharing it. Your life is about making it available to everybody you come in contact with. And the way you do that more than anything else, right, is to model it. Not to preach, right? Not to preach it, not to sell it, right? Not to turn it into some kind of intellectual understanding, no. But to be that. And when you're being that, it radiates. When you're being that, people recognize there's something alive there. There's something there that's real, that's genuine and authentic, right? And there's something there that is open and receptive to everything that's going on. If you want to see a model of it, look at the Dalai Lama. His life is an expression of the awareness. His life is an expression of that. He gets up every morning and meditates for 2 hours. And when you see him interacting with people, if you watch closely, he looks at everybody as if he's seeing himself there. He says, everybody is my family. Everybody is my brother and sister. And that's his way of experiencing humanity and relating to people.